I used to think that if I just worked harder, pushed more, planned every second of my life, I'd finally get what I wanted. But the harder I tried, the further everything drifted away. Then I discovered a truth the Stoics knew centuries ago: the more you relax, the more life flows your way. We live in a world that rewards hustle, grind, effort, endless striving. But for those of us over 40, you've probably already learned something: the more we cling to outcome, success, people, timelines, the more anxious, exhausted, and disconnected we become. What if the secret isn't in doing more, but in doing less with presence, with wisdom, and with trust? Today, we'll dive deep into 10 life lessons rooted in Stoic philosophy that changed my life. And if you let them, they might just change yours too. Lesson 1: the more you force, the more you lose. There was a time in my life when I believed that if I just tried harder, I could make anything happen. I was 44. I had a plan. A promotion was coming up at work. I had put in the hours, led the team, stayed late. I thought, if I just push a little more, it's mine. At the same time, my marriage was falling apart. But I told myself, no, I can fix this. I just have to do more. Be more. Try harder. So I tried. I pushed. I controlled every conversation. I scheduled every moment. I ignored my exhaustion. And deep down, I was terrified that if I stopped trying, everything would fall apart. And then, it did. I didn't get the promotion. My marriage ended anyway. And my health. I ended up in the ER with chest pains that turned out to be stress-induced. All that effort. All that control. And still, I lost everything I was clinging to. That was the first time I really understood what the Stoics meant by letting go. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke." I was forcing life to follow my plan. But life doesn't obey force. It responds to flow. Let me ask you something. Have you ever clenched your fists so tightly around something, a job, a relationship, a dream, that you crushed it without meaning to? We think that pushing harder means we care. We think that more control equals more success. But what I've learned, sometimes the more you grip, the more things slip through your fingers. There's a kind of peace in loosening your hold. In breathing. In trusting. I know that sounds strange. Especially when you're over 40. We've been told all our lives, make it happen. Hustle. Take control. And sure, action matters. But forcing? That's fear dressed up as effort. When I finally let go, not of the goal, but of the obsession, things changed. I showed up at work with presence, not pressure. I spoke with my ex-wife not to fix, but to listen. I slept for the first time in weeks. I didn't lose because I stopped pushing. I had already lost by trying too hard. There's a deeper wisdom in trusting the process. In relaxing into the moment. In doing your part and then letting life do the rest. Think of a farmer planting seeds. He works the soil, waters the ground, makes sure it's in the sun. But if he digs up the seed every day to check if it's growing, he ruins the harvest. That's what we do when we force. We dig up our own peace with anxiety. So if you're holding something too tightly right now, a timeline, a dream, a person, maybe it's time to let go. Not give up, but trust. Because the Stoics weren't telling us to stop caring. They were teaching us to care wisely, to place our energy where it actually matters. And maybe, the peace you've been chasing will finally arrive, not when you get what you want, but when you stop needing it so badly. And this leads us to the next lesson. Because when you begin to let go, you begin to see something else, that life has its own rhythm, its own timing, and sometimes, what you think is a delay, is life preparing you for something better. Lesson 2, Trust the timing of life. I was 46 when I watched my closest friend land the kind of success I had been working toward for years. He launched a small business, and within months, it took off. Clients, recognition, even interviews on local TV. Meanwhile, I was still grinding away in silence, stuck in a corporate role that drained me. I smiled for him, I truly did. But late at night, when no one was watching, I asked myself, why not me? I had done everything right. I followed the steps, worked hard, did the inner work. And yet, it felt like life was passing me by while others moved ahead. That quiet frustration, it eats at you. Especially when you're over 40. You start to wonder if it's too late. If maybe your time came, and went, and you missed it. But then I came across something that stopped me in my tracks. It was a passage from Marcus Aurelius: do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others. It is not given to you to know the future, only to act rightly now. That hit me. I realized that I had been comparing my season to someone else's harvest. I was trying to rush a timeline I didn't even fully understand. And maybe you felt it too, the pressure of time. That whisper in the back of your mind, you should be further by now. You're behind. Everyone else is ahead. But the truth is, there is no timeline. There is no perfect age to succeed, or to fall in love again, or to reinvent your life. That's a myth we've bought into. And Stoic wisdom calls it out for what it is: noise. I remember a conversation I had with an old man I met on a train. He was 71. I asked him, "What's one thing you wish you learned earlier?" He smiled and said, "That rushing never makes the fruit ripen faster. All it does is tire the farmer." That image stayed with me. So I stopped rushing. I stopped comparing. And I began to trust that my path was unfolding exactly as it should. And here's the surprising part: once I stopped chasing, I finally saw opportunities that had been there all along. I began to write again. I started mentoring younger colleagues. And 2 years later, I was invited to co-found a leadership program, something that felt more meaningful than anything I thought I wanted before. None of it was in my original plan. And that's the beauty of it. Here's what I've learned: when you force the timeline, you miss the moment. But when you trust the timing, life has room to surprise you. So if you're feeling behind right now, if you're looking at someone else's life and wondering when it will finally be your turn, breathe. Your time hasn't passed. It's still arriving. Maybe not on your schedule, but always right on time. You don't need to chase what's already coming toward you. You just need to stay present long enough to receive it. And that brings us to the next lesson. Because when you begin to trust the timing, something shifts inside you. You realize maybe surrender isn't weakness. Maybe surrender is where true strength begins. Lesson 3, surrender is power, not weakness. I used to think surrender was the same as giving up. That word surrender sounded like defeat. Like weakness. Like letting go of control meant letting go of my dignity. And growing up, I was taught to fight for everything. Fight for your career. Fight for your relationships. Fight for your place in this world. So I fought. For years. But then something happened that changed everything. My father got sick. It was sudden. Aggressive. The kind of illness where no matter how many doctors you call, how many treatments you research, how much you pray or bargain or beg, you know where it's heading. And I couldn't accept it. Not then. I was 50 years old and still trying to control something I had no power over. I flew across the country. Rearranged my life. Tried to micromanage every aspect of his care. I told myself I was helping. But really, I was avoiding the truth. I couldn't stop what was coming. And I remember the moment I finally broke. It was late. He was sleeping. I was sitting next to him, looking at the heart monitor like I could will it to stay steady. And then he opened his eyes, smiled faintly, and whispered, "It's okay. You can stop fighting now. Just be here with me." That was the moment I learned what real strength looked like. He had surrendered. Not out of weakness, but because he was wise enough to know, there are things in life we cannot fight and shouldn't. That night, I stopped controlling. I held his hand. I stayed present. I let go. And for the first time in weeks, I felt peace. Not because the situation changed, it didn't. But because I changed. Later, as I reflected, I remembered a quote from Epictetus: "To be free is to wish for nothing, to expect nothing, to depend on nothing." Surrender, in the Stoic sense, doesn't mean passivity. It means clarity. It means accepting what is, instead of suffering over what should be. We think strength is about control, but it's not. True strength is knowing when control is impossible, and choosing grace instead of resistance. I see this lesson everywhere now. In the mother who finally stops pushing her grown child to be someone they're not. In the man who lets go of a toxic relationship, not because he stopped loving, but because he started respecting himself. In the entrepreneur who accepts that their failed business wasn't a failure, just a redirection. You see, surrender is not about quitting. It's about choosing peace over panic, presence over pressure, acceptance over anxiety. It's a quiet strength. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that breathes. And it's not easy. Especially not after 40. We build lives around effort, around holding it all together. But sometimes, letting go is the bravest thing we can do. Because only when your hands are empty, can you receive something new. Now let me ask you. What are you still holding on to tightly, fearfully, endlessly? What would happen, if you just surrendered? Because when you do, you'll begin to see that your power doesn't come from control, it comes from within. And when you begin to live this way with less grasping, more grace, you begin to focus on what really matters. Your circle of control. Lesson 4, focus only on the inner circle of control. I used to carry the weight of everything. Other people's expectations. Their moods. Their reactions. Even their silence. If someone didn't call me back, I thought I'd done something wrong. If my boss was in a bad mood, I blamed myself. If my kids were struggling, I made it my mission to fix it all. I was constantly on edge. Because the world was constantly shifting and I was trying to balance it all. Then one day, I came across this simple idea in a book by Epictetus: some things are up to us, and some things are not. It seems obvious, right? But I realized I'd been living like everything was up to me. And that belief, that silent, invisible belief, was breaking me. I remember one moment clearly. It was a Tuesday morning. I was late for work. My teenage son had slammed the door after an argument. My phone buzzed with a message from my manager: "We need to talk." My heart was pounding. I felt like the world was falling apart, and it was all my fault. And I remember standing there, keys in my hand, thinking, what if none of this is mine to control? It hit me like a wave. My son's emotions. Not in my control. My manager's tone. Not mine either. The traffic. The weather. The way people perceive me. None of that is mine. What was mine, was how I chose to respond. Whether I yelled back. Whether I panicked. Whether I spiraled into shame or took a breath and stood tall. So I took that breath. For the first time in a long while, I just let go of what wasn't mine. And I started to rebuild my sense of self around a simple idea: I only control what I think, what I say, and what I do. That's it. When you live that way, life becomes lighter. You stop carrying what was never yours. You can love someone deeply. and still accept that their choices are not your responsibility. You can do your best at work, and release the obsession with how others judge you. You can give everything to a dream, and trust that the outcome doesn't define your worth. This is the Stoic idea of the inner citadel. Marcus Aurelius described it as the place inside us that no one else can touch. No criticism, no praise, no chaos from the outside world. Just peace. When I started living from that place, I wasn't numb, I was clear. More present. Less reactive. Let me put it simply, I stopped being a slave to things I couldn't control. And maybe you need to hear this too. You don't have to carry everyone's burdens. You don't have to fix every problem. You don't have to control how the story ends. You just have to be responsible for your page in it. And as you focus more on your own thoughts, your own actions, your own peace, you start to see something else. That the things we thought were love, the clinging, the chasing, the obsessing, were really just fear in disguise. And when you let go of that fear, you can finally love with freedom. Lesson 5, Detachment isn't cold, it's clarity. I used to believe that if I truly loved someone, I had to hold on tight. Check in constantly. Worry when they didn't reply. Overthink every silence. Try to keep them close emotionally, physically, in every way. Because in my mind, closeness meant safety. And detachment? That sounded heartless. Cold. Like you stopped caring. But the truth is, I was confusing attachment with love. And I was confusing fear with loyalty. There's one memory that comes to mind. I was in a relationship in my early 50s. She was kind, beautiful, full of life, but I was anxious all the time. Not because of her, but because of my own need for control. If she was quiet, I panicked. If she didn't seem excited, I thought something was wrong. I became hyper-aware, always reading between the lines, trying to anticipate every shift in energy. Eventually, I wore us both out. One night, after a quiet dinner, she looked at me and said, "You're always holding your breath, waiting for something to go wrong. But I can't be your oxygen." That hit me hard. She wasn't pulling away. I was smothering. Not out of unkindness but out of fear. Fear of being left. Fear of being unworthy. Fear that if I wasn't everything, I'd be nothing. After we parted ways, I spent time alone. A lot of time. Reading, reflecting, journaling. That's when I found this line from Seneca, "He suffers more than necessary who suffers before it is necessary." I realized I had been suffering in advance. Creating pain in my mind, long before anything even went wrong. And the answer wasn't to stop loving. It was to love without losing myself. That's when I began to understand detachment not as distance, but as clarity. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care without clinging. You love without needing to possess. You give without expecting to be repaid. It's about showing up fully, but not making someone else responsible for your peace. When you're attached, love feels like anxiety. When you're detached, love feels like freedom. And it's not just about romantic relationships. I saw this with my kids too. As they grew up, I had to learn to let go of control, of expectations, of the version of them I had in my mind. And in doing so, I saw them more clearly. Not as extensions of me, but as whole, complex humans walking their own path. The Stoics taught this over and over. Epictetus reminded us, don't demand that things happen as you wish. Wish them to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly. In other words, the tighter you grip, the more you suffer. But when you loosen your hold, you begin to see love doesn't die when you stop clinging. It actually breathes deeper. Detachment is not indifference. It's presence. It's peace. It's loving without fear because you know your worth doesn't depend on whether they stay or leave. So ask yourself, are you loving from fear, or from freedom? Are you attaching your identity to someone else's choices? Or are you learning to love clearly and let go gently? Because when you begin to detach, you make space for something deeper, clarity of thought, clarity of action, clarity of purpose. And that brings us to our next lesson. Because the more clarity you build, the more you'll realize, your mind is a garden. And what you plant grows. Lesson 6, the mind is a garden, choose what you plant. A few years ago, I caught myself saying the same phrase over and over again, nothing ever works out for me. It became my inner soundtrack, quiet, constant, and slowly poisonous. I'd wake up tired and say it. I'd face a challenge at work and whisper it to myself. I'd get passed over for an opportunity and think, of course. That's just my life. And the more I said it, the more it became true. One day, after a stressful morning, I was sitting in traffic, just stewing in my own frustration. Everything felt off. Everything felt hard. I glanced at the car beside me, an elderly man, maybe in his 70s, smiling to himself. Windows down. Wind in his hair. Music on low. Same traffic. Same city. Same moment. Different energy. And I asked myself something I'd never considered before, if we're living in the same reality, why does his feel lighter? That night, I opened one of my old journals. Page after page of complaints, stress, fears, doubts. And suddenly it hit me. My mind had become a neglected garden. And I had been planting weeds day after day without even noticing. The Stoics talk about this often. Epictetus wrote, every habit and capability is confirmed and grows in its corresponding actions, walking by walking, and running by running. Therefore, if you want to do something, make a habit of it. Your thoughts are habits. And your inner dialogue? That's the soil everything grows from. If you keep feeding your mind with fear, with scarcity, with anger, you shouldn't be surprised when anxiety blooms. But what if you planted something else? I decided to try a simple practice. Every morning, before checking my phone or opening my laptop, I would write down one thought that I wanted to grow in my mind. Just one. Some days it was, I am enough. Other days, whatever happens today, I'll face it calmly. It felt silly at first. Forced. But slowly, the garden began to change. The weeds didn't disappear overnight, they never do. But I noticed myself pausing more. Reacting less. Smiling more, not because life got easier, but because my inner world got lighter. I started noticing beauty. Noticing good people. Noticing how often things did work out if I just paid attention. Here's what I've learned, your mind is always listening to you. Always. So what you say, even silently, becomes your reality. If you speak to yourself with harshness, your world feels hostile. If you speak to yourself with compassion, your world feels safe. This isn't magical thinking. It's perception. And perception is everything. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. What color is your soul today? And even more important, what color do you want it to be? So if your mind is a garden, what are you planting? What are you watering? What have you let overgrow without tending? Because the life you experience starts with the thoughts you allow to take root. And once you learn to nurture your mind, you begin to build true strength. Not just peace, but the kind of resilience that doesn't break when storms come. And that's exactly where we're headed next. Because in a world full of chaos, you need more than a peaceful mind. You need to be the one thing that never moves. Lesson 7, be like the rock the waves crash upon. I remember the morning I got the call. It was 6:43 a.m. I hadn't even had my coffee yet. Your department is being downsized. We're letting people go. And yes, You're on the list. 12 years of my life just like that. And the funny part? My first instinct wasn't to panic. It was silence. A kind of stillness I didn't expect. You see, 5 years earlier, that call would have destroyed me. I would have spiraled. Fallen apart. Taken it as proof that I wasn't good enough, fast enough, valuable enough. But something had changed. In the years before that moment, I had begun practicing something from Marcus Aurelius: be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved and the raging of the sea falls still around it. I used to read that quote and think it sounded poetic. But now I understood it. Because life will throw waves. Not if, but when. Sometimes they're small. Traffic, stress, bad news. Other times they knock you flat: divorce, death, diagnosis, job loss. You don't get to choose the wave. You only choose who you'll be when it hits. And on that morning, jobless, stunned, I chose stillness. I didn't shout. Didn't curse the universe. Didn't crumble. I breathed. I got dressed. I called my wife. And I went for a walk. That doesn't mean I didn't feel pain. I did. But I let the pain move through me, not own me. And that's the Stoic difference. Stoicism doesn't ask us to be emotionless. It invites us to be anchored. To build an inner stability that doesn't vanish when the outer world shakes. I've seen this in others, too. I watched a friend lose his wife to cancer and still show up every morning for his kids with presence and strength. I met a woman who rebuilt her life after being left at 60, who learned to paint, traveled solo, and said to me, "I thought I'd be broken forever. Turns out I was just becoming something new." These are people who didn't let the waves define them. They became the rock. And here's what I've noticed: people like that, they don't speak louder. They don't try to impress you. They just are. Grounded. Present. Unshakable. Not because they haven't been through storms, but because they've learned to stand through them. That's the kind of person I want to be. And maybe you do too. So how do we get there? We start by remembering this: the world will always bring chaos. But your response is your own. When the waves come, pause. Feel the surge. Then plant your feet. Breathe deep. Let it crash. And stay right where you are. Because real power isn't loud. It's steady. And the more you root yourself in that calm, the more you realize something even deeper: success, real success, isn't just about achievement. It's about peace. And sometimes, peace is the highest form of power. Lesson 8: Success without peace is failure. I once worked with a man who had everything most people dream of. Corner office. 6-figure salary. A car that turned heads at every stoplight. He was sharp, respected, and always seemed 2 steps ahead of everyone else. But behind closed doors, he was a wreck. I remember walking into the restroom one day and finding him leaning over the sink, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling. He looked at me and said, "I haven't slept in 3 nights. I'm terrified of losing it all." That moment stuck with me. Because here was someone society called successful, and yet, he was falling apart from the inside out. That's when I truly began to question what success even means. What's the point of achievement if it costs you your health? What's the value of wealth if you can't find rest? What's the use of recognition if you're constantly battling anxiety and burnout? I had chased that version of success before. In my late 30s and early 40s, I pushed relentlessly. Long hours. Weekend meetings. Saying yes to every project. I told myself I was building my future. But in reality, I was dismantling my present. The truth hit me during a family dinner. We were celebrating my birthday. Everyone was laughing except me. I was staring at my phone, waiting for an email that might affect a deal I'd been chasing for weeks. My wife gently put her hand on mine and said, "You're here, but you're not really with us." And she was right. I had become physically present, but emotionally absent. Because I was too busy chasing something I wasn't even sure I wanted anymore. That night, after everyone went to bed, I sat alone with an old Stoic journal. Flipping through pages, I found a line from Epictetus: "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." That hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't feel wealthy, because I was always wanting more. More recognition. More security. More control. And no matter how much I got, it was never enough. That's when I realized peace isn't what comes after success. Peace is the measure of success. I started making small changes. I declined meetings that didn't align with my values. I turned off my phone during family time. I made space not just in my schedule, but in my mind. At first, I was afraid. Afraid that slowing down would mean falling behind. But it didn't. In fact, I became sharper. More focused. More human. People noticed. Not because I was louder, but because I was calmer. And isn't that what we're really after? Not just the external wins, but the internal stillness. Not just applause, but alignment. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you seek tranquility, do less. Or do what's essential and do it well." That's not laziness. That's wisdom. Today, when I think of success, I ask myself one question: can I sleep in peace? If the answer is yes, I know I'm on the right path. If the answer is no, I step back and reassess. Because I've learned no title, no income, no applause is worth sacrificing the quiet inside me. So if you're working yourself to exhaustion, chasing a life you can't even enjoy, pause. Ask yourself, am I building success, or am I trading my soul for status? Because the moment you choose peace over pressure, you begin to define success on your own terms. And when you do that, you become less attached to outcomes, and more anchored in who you are. Which brings us to our next lesson. Lesson 9, accept the uncontrollable and you'll be free. There was a period in my life somewhere around 48 when I tried to control everything. I planned every hour. Micromanaged every detail. Expected people to act a certain way, and got upset when they didn't. I wanted life to follow a script, my script. And when it didn't, I felt angry, frustrated, anxious. It was exhausting. I was holding the steering wheel of life with white knuckles as if I could somehow control traffic, the weather, my boss's mood, or even my kids' choices. But the more I tried to control, the more things slipped out of my hands. One day, I was running late to a meeting that could have changed my career. I had prepped for weeks. But that morning, a flat tire, an unexpected downpour, and gridlocked traffic had other plans. I remember gripping the steering wheel, jaw clenched, yelling inside my car like the universe owed me something. That meeting? I missed it. The opportunity? Gone. And the lesson? Finally loud enough to hear. When I got home, still soaked and angry, I sat in silence. And I remembered a quote I had underlined months earlier but never truly understood: make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. Epictetus. That night, I finally saw the truth: there are two kinds of pain. The pain that comes from life itself, unexpected, natural, out of your hands. And the pain you add on top of it, the resistance, the fighting, the refusal to accept. I had been living with both. Stoicism teaches what they call the dichotomy of control. There are only two categories: what you can control, and what you cannot. Most of us live in a third, imaginary category: things I should be able to control, but can't. But that place only breeds frustration. So I started asking myself, in every situation, is this within my control? And if the answer was no, I practiced letting go. At first, it felt uncomfortable, even irresponsible. But gradually, I noticed something incredible: freedom. I couldn't control if someone misunderstood me, but I could control how I clarified, calmly. I couldn't control whether my ideas were always accepted, but I could present them with confidence and grace. I couldn't control the future, but I could show up today with full effort and an open heart. And when you begin to live this way, life becomes less like a battle, and more like a conversation. You start flowing with it, instead of fighting against it. Let me be clear, accepting the uncontrollable doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. It means you show up fully, but you stop tying your peace to things outside your grasp. Like the weather, or someone's opinion, or the way life decides to unfold. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That strength, it's quiet, but unshakable. It's the kind of strength that lets you say, "I don't like this, but I accept it. This hurts, but I don't have to suffer more than necessary. This isn't what I planned, but maybe it's what I need." So let me ask you now, what are you resisting in your life that you could begin to accept? Because the moment you stop fighting what's out of your hands, you get your hands back. And with them the ability to shape what truly matters. And when you begin to live that way, you relax. Not because everything is perfect, but because you no longer need it to be. And that leads us to the final and maybe most powerful lesson. Lesson 10, relax, that's when the good stuff comes. I used to believe that tension was a virtue. That if I wasn't worried, I wasn't working hard enough. That if I wasn't anxious, I wasn't paying attention. That if I ever let myself relax, even for a moment, I'd fall behind. So I stayed wired. Always alert. Always planning the next move. Always carrying the weight of what if on my shoulders. And then, something strange happened. I went on a short weekend trip, just a quiet cabin in the mountains. No signal. No calendar. Just silence, trees, and a whole lot of stillness. At first, I hated it. I kept checking my phone even though there was no service. I paced around like something urgent might show up and need me. But by the second day, something inside me started to settle. I sat by the river one morning and just listened. To the water. To the wind. To the birds. But most of all, to myself. And it was in that stillness that an idea came, not forced, not pulled from mental strain, just arrived, like a leaf floating downstream. That idea became the foundation for a coaching business I now run today. It didn't come when I was grinding. It didn't come during a brainstorming session. It came when I was finally quiet enough to hear it. Marcus Aurelius said, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." But most of us never go there because we're too busy doing. Too busy controlling. Too busy forcing. Here's what I've realized: tension repels. Relaxation attracts. It's like trying to fall asleep. The harder you try, the more it slips away. But when you release the need to make it happen, it comes naturally. Life is often the same. Think about it. Have you ever tried too hard to make a relationship work? Said too much, reached too far, clung too tight? And then, after walking away, when you stopped chasing, they came back. Or you found someone better. Or, you simply found peace. That's not coincidence. That's energy. When you're frantic, the world feels closed. When you're calm, doors begin to open. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus taught that desperation is rooted in fear, and that true power comes from trusting that what's meant for you cannot miss you. It doesn't mean you stop showing up. It means you show up without gripping. You act with intention, not desperation. You speak with clarity, not force. You live with presence, not pressure. Since learning this, I've noticed a shift in everything. Conversations feel easier. Opportunities come more naturally. And even when they don't, I'm okay. Because I've made peace my baseline, not just my goal. So now, before I speak in front of a room, before I make a big decision, before I begin my day, I take a deep breath. I soften my jaw. I relax my hands. And I remind myself, I don't have to chase what's meant for me. I just have to meet it with open hands. So if you've been pushing, forcing, chasing, I invite you to pause. Not to give up, but to give in. To soften. To trust. To make space. Because sometimes, the thing you want most can only find you when you finally stop trying to control everything. And that's the beauty of Stoic wisdom. It doesn't promise you the perfect life, it teaches you to be perfectly present in the life you have. And once you've mastered that, you'll find that everything you truly need is already on its way. So maybe you're not here by accident. Maybe this was the moment you were meant to hear. You don't have to control everything to live a meaningful life. You just have to trust yourself and relax into the process. Backhand index pointing right. If this resonated with you, leave a comment. Tell me which lesson hit the deepest. And if you haven't already, subscribe, so we can walk this Stoic path together. Movie camera 10 Stoic principles so that nothing can affect you. Watch this next if you're ready to build emotional armor and never be shaken by external chaos again.